Sorry about the delay, guys, but I laid my sunglasses down. Usually, I lay it down in a spot that I remember or it's easy to see, but the couch that I have in my bedroom is dark, and I laid my sunglasses down on the couch, and yeah, it went camo on me. It went camo, but we found them, so we're now live, and just chill, sit back. Let's talk some college football, relaxed atmosphere. I'm your host, Golden Blue Dude, and I'm going to put the, let's see, forget to do this every freaking time before I even start. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to put the link of the StreamYard in, because instead of a call-in like we used to do, we found out as YouTubers, and I'm not the one that started it. I don't know. Maybe it was Lou. Maybe it was Pete. I don't know. But somebody found out. Maybe it was Mark Rogers. I don't know. Somebody found out it was easier to just do StreamYard and invite them on. You don't have to show your face. You can take the camera off. Just show me your face before I put you on, and then you can take your camera off. And it's like a phone call. In fact, you might be even more relaxed because I don't know if people realize this, but it's a mental thing as far as calling can be stressful. Some people, just the thought of making a phone call is stressful. So even that aspect of it is a little more calming. Remember, how about this as an example? You remember your first girlfriend, right? You finally get a hottie, or maybe she wasn't a hottie. I don't know your situation. But my situation, you finally get a hottie, right? Finally get her digits. And then there comes the time to actually call. Now I actually got to call. What? 10 numbers if you got it out area code. If not, 7 numbers, right? So first 3, oh man, that last number. Last number. Gotta get my courage up. Gotta get my confidence up. It was that last number that kind of got you sometimes, especially when you were early in the game. Well, maybe you weren't like me and you had confidence right off the get go and you had no problem dialing the digits once you got them. But yeah, it can really be that way. Well, with StreamYard, you don't even have to worry about it. You just hit the link, turn off your camera, boom, good to go. Nothing stressful at all about it. So let me double check, make sure I have all the codes in right. I don't want to put in the wrong StreamYard code and you end up on somebody else's show. That'd be crazy, wouldn't it? I think we're good. There we go. So there's the code. You want to join? Hit the link and I'll put you on. You can turn your camera off. Doesn't matter. And what we like to do is limit of 4. What I found out is if you put more than 4 people on at the same time, it gets hectic. The conversation goes nuts. It's hard to keep track with what everybody's saying. People talk over each other. So 4 max. Even 4 can get a little ridiculous, but that's okay. We're gonna do 4. So first come, first serve, and then if somebody pops in for a 5th. We'll rotate out. Whoever popped in, I'll remove you, let the new one in, and you can get back in line. It's not like you can get on and then you're done once I remove you. You can get back in line, and we'll go in order like that. So you want to join the show, just hit the link right there. I'll put it in the comments. If it's not working, please let me know. So I want to make sure that I have the right one in there. So if that does not work, let me know. And early in the videos, I always try to remind everybody, and I'm not sure why live shows don't do this more, because it's very, very important. Please hit the like button. It's not a pat on the back. What you do by hitting the like button is it makes the video hit the YouTube algorithm more, which makes YouTube suggest this video more, so more people see it, more people click on it, and boom, we have a bigger audience. That is growing your video 101. Hitting the like button. And of course, you guys comment. That always helps too. So yeah, by all means, flood the comments, hit that like button, and let's grow the video. We've been having some pretty good live shows recently. I mean, I had a big old boom this past month because of conference realignment, gained 1,500 subscribers in a matter of 2 weeks. That is a big boom. That's a bigger boom than last year. So I'm pretty happy about that. Golden Blue Dude is growing by leaps and bounds. I mean, it's slowed down a little bit, but the great thing is, as far as the views goes, there's certain phases you go through. You know, starting out, you're struggling. How do I get views from my video? And then you start building and building. And for a long time, I still had to promote. I wasn't at the spot to where I would just get good views without promoting it on Facebook, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. Promoting, right? Guys, we are starting to get to the point to where I'm not having to promote as much. We're still getting the views that the channel needs without me promoting. So that's on you guys. You guys have, I just talk. And turn on the camera. So you guys' hard work, it has paid off. And by the way, if you want to get my attention by asking me a question, bringing up a subject, or you want to troll me, you want to make fun of me, that's fine too. Best way to do that, there's a little $sign down on your bottom right-hand corner, right under the comment section. That is your super chat button. You hit that, put a comment in there, and I guarantee you, I put that comment on the screen. I read your name, read the comment. If it's a question, I will answer it. I will leave the comment on the screen for as long as I'm talking about it. So you want to get my attention, that's the best way to do it. Y'all got to realize I'm trying to, doing a live show is a lot of things going on. So it's hard to pay attention to what's going on in the chat. So you want to get my attention, it lights up for me. You hit the super chat, it lights up green, yellow, red, depending on the amount, blue, whatever. So you want to get my attention, that's the best way to do it. And I make sure to put all of those comments on the screen and I address it. And it helps keep the channel going, because I don't know if y'all realize this, but I do this full time. This is what I do. I did have a second job there for a while, but I felt like I wasn't able to put my all into Golden Blue Dude. So I finally said, you know what? I got to take that step. I got to have faith in my product. I got to take that leap of faith. So I did. So this is what I do full time. So any type of financial contribution, donation, whatever you want to call it, helps to keep the channel going, because this is what I do full time. This is what I do. So we got Tony and we have Kenny today, right?
Yes.
So
it's got me on there twice.
I only see you on there once. Anybody else see? You see Kenny twice, Tony?
I only see him once.
Okay. All right. I'm just making sure that.
I have a fun subject to talk about.
Well, hold on. We'll get to that. Hold on. Whatever you're thinking about, hold on. So I named, the title to this, the teams that, the Big 12 and the ACC can't afford to lose. We can talk about all the conferences, but I was going to make a video on just that, but then some other things popped in my head and I kind of sidetracked. So I wanted to talk about what teams everybody thought they think each conference, like it would be the biggest hit. Maybe the conference would survive if they lost, these three teams, but it would be the biggest, the biggest hit to these conferences. We can start off with the Big 12, the Pac-12, the ACC. I'm leaning towards the ACC. How about we start with the ACC? Y'all good with that?
Yeah. But before we do that, I want to talk about something that Ferris said in the comment. First thing that West Virginia would have to do is to increase their seating if they want to go to the SEC. They would have to increase that seat.
That actually makes sense. I understand that, because the Big 12's baseline is 40,000. I think that's ridiculous. Like, that's not Power 5 status to me, but whatever. That's not me. What's the bottom line for the SEC? Is it like 65?
65 or 70,000.
Well, I know it's not 70 because of Kentucky. I think it's 65 though. But yeah, we would. Right now we're at 60, And I've been, you know, it's funny that you said that because I've been preaching for a long, long time about adding on to our stadium. And, you know, if you Google Mountaineer Field, you'll see that on one side of the end zone, yes, the lower deck is connected, but it's a thin strip. They need to bring that thin strip all the way down to the ground. Number one, you add seating capacity. That might be your 5,000 seats right there. I don't know. I'm not a mathematician. But you increase your seating capacity, right? And it'll trap in the noise better because you're bringing those top stands all the way down to field level. And I think West Virginia's football entrance would be better as well, because right now our entrance is they come out of the weight room onto the field, which is fine and dandy, but I think it's more intimidating if you have the players come out of the crowd.
Well, would you guys? I also see that where they could take and put a rim around the top too, if they want.
Yes, it's built like Iowa State, so they could extend the edges and then connect the top if they wanted to.
This is an honest question for you, Golden Blue dude, since you're WVA fan.
Yeah,
WVU, my mistake.
No problem.
When it comes to the stadium specifically, would you guys have to tear down the stadium and rebuild it back up again if you wanted to have a retractable roof?
No, what we could do, that's a good question, actually. That's a good question. In order to have any type of roof or retractable roof, all they would need to do is, you know, where the upper decks come out, you'd have to go beyond that, probably a good 20, 30 feet, lay your footers and your foundation, and you could have a roof like that. Instead of it attaching to the top of the stands, just have it go over the entire stadium, and you could have it mounted around the stadium. So it would look more like a canopy.
So kind of like what you see with a Hard Rock Stadium, almost like that.
Kinda, except they still have an opening in the middle, and it still attaches to the corner of the stadium. I'm talking about a freestanding type of situation where it freestands on its own. It's not connected to the stadium anyways. Straight up canopy, freestanding on its own, and that's still that's still a roof. That's still a dome.
Yeah. To avoid all this, I've seen West Virginia's games. Some West Virginia games get canceled if it's early in the afternoon or in the middle of the afternoon. Sometimes on Saturdays, if it rains really bad, if it's like pouring rain and stuff like that, you guys tend to have to cancel the game sometimes.
That was back whenever we had the fake the rubber, what do they call it? The AstroTurf, where it didn't even, like today's turf, at least it looks like grass, and I know it has the pellets, but at least it looks like grass. We used to have that stuff that looked like basically a
concrete.
A painted road that was painted green, and then, you know, all the stuff on the field. So yes, whenever we did that, it happened a couple times, and then they put a crown in the middle to make the water flow out and into the drain. So yeah, what you're saying did happen, but that was a long, long, long time ago, back before we had the turf that we have now, and before we had the crown. Once we put the crown, that solved that. Once we got this current turf, they actually took the crown out because it drains a different way. So yeah, I mean, we used to have that problem, but I mean, that's been at least 25 years ago, something like that.
An Outlaw video just popped up. Golden Blue dude, Outlaw Football, and I'm not sure if he was being facetious or something. He's like, Mario Cristobal is the next Nick Saban. I'm like,
oh, he is. That's what he likes to do. I know. Me and him actually get along really well, but I mean, that's his game, and it works for him. You know, everybody has to find their own niche, and he's found it.
Yeah,
and
it's entertaining.
And to get back to where he said he was, our games being canceled. The only other game that I remember us ever getting not canceled, but delayed a little bit, was because of lightning.
Delayed, yes, that has happened, and it was because of lightning. So we have another person that hasn't spoke up. So I want to make sure they're okay. Is it Tredine? How do you pronounce that? Sampson is your last name. You know what? I'm gonna let them figure that out because I haven't heard. Maybe they have themselves on mute or something. But I still have you in the background. But if you will, show me your face or show me some type of you're alive or something, I'm a little concerned because I haven't heard anything from that person.
Yeah, and for you guys, since West Virginia and Virginia are in the DMV area, basically, how far are you guys from DC? If you guys had to, let's say you couldn't get, what's it called, approval to extend your stadium or put a retractable roof, how far are you from DC to play in Commander Stadium and stuff like that?
Honestly, first
About
of all,
2 hours.
I don't see that happening. But if they were going to do that, honestly, we'd probably share a stadium with Pitt because that would be closer. I don't see us going to DC, but I don't think that would ever happen because we would have people wouldn't turn down anything like that. That's I don't even think that's a part of the equation. They just have to see that we're going to fill it consistently, and we've done, especially whenever Holgerson first got to West Virginia, we were filling it consistently, and they were thinking about expanding, but then he kind of drove the football program into the ground. And whenever your team's going 8-4 with NFL talent all over the team. I mean, in 2012, he walked into the most loaded West Virginia team ever as far as talent goes. Went 7-5. In 2018, probably a top 5 team as far as talent. Went 8-4. And then, of course, 2013, we went 4-9. Attendance went down under Dana Holgerson. It's actually starting to build back up. Now, last year it kind of dwindled there at the end, but we were still putting close to 50,000 in our 60,000 seat stadium, maybe not making a bowl. We were like 5-5 we were 4-6, then 5-6, then finally 6-6. So we could have missed a bowl, and we were still going 3-4.
How far are you guys from Blacksburg?
Oh, Blacksburg's probably a good 5 hours.
Or Virginia.
Yeah.
Morgantown, which is where West Virginia plays, is in the most northern part of West Virginia. It's about 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, depending on traffic from Pittsburgh. I would say 2.5, maybe 3 hours, depending on traffic to DC, and then 4 to 5 hours, depending on traffic to Blacksburg, because Blacksburg is in the upper, it would be the bottom half of West Virginia, just out of the state. But Morgantown's at the top, so you'd have to go through the entire state.
Okay. No. How about where Virginia plays? How far are you from there?
Farther, because they're in Charlottesville, and it's in the center. I mean, that's probably 7 or 8 hours.
Okay. So
yeah, easy.
You would be closer to Pitt if you had to share a stadium with someone. Okay.
Yep.
Or play in Heinz Field or something like that.
Which, you know what? Which would actually be a blessing for Pitt, because we would actually fill it up. Guarantee it.
Pitt would hate you for taking their home stadium, though.
Yeah, they wouldn't be too happy about that. Wouldn't be too happy about that. What's going on, Jeff? Man, I haven't heard anything from you. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, not a lot. I wanted to bring up a couple things. You were talking yesterday about Arizona State and UNLV, about the markets that they have.
Yeah.
The problem with Arizona, and I lived in Arizona for a little while, Arizona State really doesn't control much of Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Because
they have more of the Tempe market.
And if you go to Arizona, even in Tempe, it's hard to find somebody who was born in Arizona. A lot of them are your snowbirds and
nomads,
like Florida
coming in.
Yep, like Florida. I would agree.
Because I would go to a lot of sports bars, and there was a lot of Nebraska bars, Iowa bars, Wisconsin, the Midwest, all the snowbirds would do their bars.
Right.
And I think that's some of UNLV's problem. Not a lot of people who live in Las Vegas grew up in Las Vegas. They all transferred down in for jobs and stuff like that.
That's a great point. That's a good point. So they have all these resources. They're sharing a magnificent stadium with the Raiders, holds about 65,000. Highly populated Las Vegas, right?
Right.
So the TV market's there, but you pointed out maybe the thing that hurts UNLV, and that's not very many people that live in Las Vegas were born in Las Vegas and aren't diehard Vegas fans. Now, the sports teams are getting a lot of support, but UNLV, the college, how can they tap into the pro market? Because we're seeing, I mean, even freaking hockey, the Knights, I mean, that surprised. Number one, it surprised me that the NHL picked Las Vegas, and then number two, it surprised me at how well the Knights have done. They've done really, really well. So how do they tap into that? I mean, they're already sharing the stadium to the Raiders, so they have the facilities. What do they got to do?
Well, you're going to have to drop a lot of money. The thing that's helping the Raiders and the thing that will carry the Raiders for the next 5 years is the away teams. When you got, let's say the Steelers go, well, all the Steeler fans, they'll go to Vegas. And the nice thing with Vegas is, and I don't know how it is today, but you could always get $99 tickets to fly to Vegas. Flying to Vegas is cheap because they want you to gamble. So the travel is cheap. A lot of times you can find some good hotel deals. So that's what's going to help the Raiders. The away teams are coming in. And I think that's what UNLV would be best served, is to try to get some money and get away teams that travel to come to them.
I gotcha. Have y'all seen the
why don't they go about this way? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Golden Blue. Why don't they think about it like this? Do it this way, and maybe they'll get more attention if they say that they're using the NFL stadium for their home field. That would attract a lot of recruits, because they get to play in the NFL stadium.
Actually, that's what's hurting. Actually, Kenny, I can push back a little bit. That's what's hurting the Hurricanes a little bit, because we don't have an on-campus stadium, and we're basically renting the stadium out with the Dolphins. That's what's hurting a team like the Hurricanes a little bit, because we have to share a stadium with a pro team. It's not on.
I do think if Miami wins more, that I'm not going to say it's going to solve itself, but it's definitely going to help. And I do think Miami's going to have a great season. So I think the attendance will be much better this year. But I still don't think Hard Rock gets sold out, to your point, Kenny.
Right. I mean, but I'm just thinking that would help them attract more recruits, and possibly, get NFL people more attracted into UNLV.
I think it's two things. Number one, winning, of course. We all know winning attracts fans. Duh. Number two, you're out of conference. You need to try to schedule some good. And I know, especially for UNLV, it's going to be difficult to schedule a home out of conference against a big time brand. But you at least need to try. And if you got to settle for a road, that's fine as well, because at least your recruits will know, hey, even though it's on the road, we're going to get to play against an Alabama or a Texas or whoever. You're going to get to play against a really good brand. So who UNLV plays would help. And, of course, winning. Winning always wins the result.
Another issue with UNLV specifically, they're not really known as a football school. They're more a basketball school. That's the issue with UNLV as well, GBD, that they're not really a football school in general.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's the same problem that Duke had when David Cutcliffe was doing great at Duke. They still couldn't pack out the stadium because Duke's a basketball school. They're not a football school. So that's actually a really good point.
That's what's happening with Kansas. That's what's happening with Kentucky. That's what's happening with North Carolina.
Well, at Kentucky, I got to give Kentucky credit. They actually do fill their stadium.
Yeah, it's a small stadium. It makes it seem like it's packed. That team is like, aren't they the smallest stadium in the SEC, Kenny?
No, actually, Kentucky
Vanderbilt
has 65. Vanderbilt has like
40. Is
39.8 is Vanderbilt, 39,800.
Yeah.
Well, then Oregon State's lower.
There's some really small stadiums out there that people don't like. Vanderbilt's under 40,000. Wake Forest, they might have broken 40,000. I'm not sure, but last time I checked, Wake Forest under 40,000. Oregon State's under 40. Washington State's under 40. And then there's teams that would actually surprise you, like you just mentioned Missouri, over 60,000 right there. Kentucky, over 60,000 right there. South Carolina, over 80,000, I think. Iowa State, over 70,000. It's no, over 60,000, excuse me.
I think isn't Iowa like 95,000, almost 100,000?
No, they're like 70 some.
70. Am I thinking of like Ohio State or Michigan?
Yeah. 100,000 seat stadiums you have. I had them memorized at one point, so hopefully I still do. All right, your 100,000 seat stadiums. You got Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, Texas, Alabama is now over 100,000. LSU is now over 100,000. Georgia's close with 90,000.
The Coliseum.
Tennessee.
No, the Coliseum is not 100,000. It's 80.
What about
some.
Iowa Hawkeyes?
There's 60 some.
Tennessee has 100,000.
There you go, Tennessee. That was the other one I was missing. There's only, I'd say, maybe a dozen or so. And Alabama actually hasn't had a 100,000 seat stadium for all that long. And that surprised me because Alabama, that's their football. They have one of the best fan bases in the nation. So
how big is Texas?
What about USC and UCLA? Don't they have like close to 100,000?
Rose Bowl, I think, is right at 90,000, and USC actually took seats out, so they're in the 70s, I think. Yeah.
How about Texas and Oklahoma? How big are their stadiums?
Texas is over 100,000. Oklahoma just added to their stadium, so they're over 80,000. But I don't think I think they're at 86,000. But I know Texas just renovated and added some more seats, so I think they're like 103 or 104,000. A&M, I forgot about Texas A&M. Texas A&M, they're
LSU.
Yes, I did mention LSU. They added those.
How about Baylor? How big is their stadium?
45,000.
45, 50,000.
So they're a very intimate stadium. Okay.
But they designed it to where there's footers in that open end zone to where if they wanted to expand to 60 or 70,000, they could. So they
How about
didn't
Oregon?
TCU expand theirs a little bit?
They did, but they're still under 60,000.
How about Wazoo? How about Wazoo and Washington?
Man, Washington I think is over 70,000. Washington State is under 40,000. Oregon's actually I know they're over 50, but I don't think they're over 60. I think they're 55, somewhere around there, and then Oregon State's under 40,000.
So Oregon is probably one of the smaller stadiums in the Pac-12.
Yeah, but man, it still rocks. I gotta hand it to Oregon fans. It's only about 55,000, but the way it's designed and it traps noise very well. So even though it's a smaller stadium, man, it can really create some noise. But I would say it's one of the smaller ones because the only ones that are smaller than Oregon is, let's see, Oregon State and Washington State. I think Stanford, I think, because I think Stanford's only 50,000. So yeah, they're like bottom four when it comes to size.
Is Georgia Tech a big stadium?
Surprisingly, it's not huge, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 60,000.
I thought they played in the Georgia Dome.
No. That was the Falcons, and the Georgia Dome was actually demolished because they transferred over to the Mercedes-Benz Dome. Georgia Tech plays in Bobby Dodd.
No, Golden Blue, dude. I'm gonna go so somebody else can come in.
All right, thanks, buddy.
The reason why I asked that, I've always assumed that.
Wait, did Jeff drop? I think Jeff dropped. And then I'm going to add straight from the 304. Straight from the 304. First time guest. What's going on? Can you hear us? Straight from the 304. You there?
He might have his mic off.
I'm gonna put him in the background real quick. Hold on, because I know I hear stuff in the background. I just don't hear him. Straight from the 304. I don't know your name. I'm just going by your stream name. If you would just show me your face and then turn the camera off. That way I know I'm not being, pranked or whatever. So just show me your face. Oh, he
Is
dropped.
Miami the only? I have a question. Is Miami the only college team that shares a pro stadium?
No, Pitt also does. And I think there's another. UNLV does. We already know that. There might be just three.
No, I'm not counting UNLV because they're not really a football school. So I'm talking about the actual.
Well, Pitt.
Yeah, Pitt and Miami are the only two.
I know Temple's not considered a football school, but they share with the Eagles.
Yeah.
Navy does sometimes, or the Army Navy Day. Army.
Yeah, they play in Lincoln Financial sometimes.
And Baltimore sometimes. It's weird. I don't know. None of those teams are. Well, I mean, Navy's in Annapolis, so I guess that's kind of close. But whatever.
I'm kind of. Yeah, no, and I'm kind of surprised. How big was the Cotton Bowl?
Cotton Bowl. Oh, Cotton Bowl was actually pretty big. I think it holds 80,000, and it's still in existence. That's actually where they play the Red River rivalry still in the Cotton Bowl. So,
so they don't play
it's a decent sized stadium. No, that's not a home and home. That's a neutral site. And if you watch it, the stadium is literally split between orange and burgundy. You can tell what side the Oklahoma fans are on and what side the Texas fans are on. And I think it holds 80,000, right around there. Let me get to this super chat real quick, guys. Vandy Rose, a great supporter of Golden Blue Dude. I appreciate the $20 super chat. Says, if the Big Ten, SEC, and ACC stopped at 20 teams, that's the Power 3. I agree with that. If the Pac and the Big 12 mixed, plus Boise State and South Florida, there's enough meat to argue a Power 4 and stay in the mix. Knife fighting isn't helping. Yes, I agree. That last part of that comment, love it, because that's been the problem with the Big 12 and the Pac-12. They've been trying to figure out, hey, we'll add these few brands here, or they'll sit back and wait till something happens to them. SEC, Big Ten, they're going after the big dogs. Big Ten is like USC, UCLA, and California. Don't care about geography. Here's the money. Come on. We want your TV market. And then, of course, last year, the SEC, straight for the jugular, went for Oklahoma and Texas out of the Big 12. Those are the moves you need to be trying to get. And that's why, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But the best move for the ACC is getting Notre Dame and taking a shot at the Big 12. Now, West Virginia makes sense, but you could also hurt the Big 12 by going after Oklahoma State. That would hurt them too. But ESPN might want Oklahoma State in the SEC. See, y'all got to realize, for ESPN, their family is the ACC and the SEC. So they want the SEC to be the best brand, but they also want the ACC to be good as well. So it's going to be a two-fight front on the Big 12 from the SEC and the ACC. And ESPN will tell both of those conferences who they want to get. So they're going to be like, okay, I don't know who the teams will be. And I know the SEC has shut their doors for now. But trust me, it'll happen in the future. But it might be the ACC's turn. So ESPN's up there going, all right, ACC, you guys, of course, got to lock down Notre Dame, get that done, and go get us a West Virginia and a Baylor,
TCU,
maybe a TCU or a Houston, and then the SEC. The next go around, they're like, all right, SEC, we want you to go after. We'll go Oklahoma State. And who else can we? Well, they might reserve Baylor for the SEC, but see, that's just.
Why do you say that?
Well, Baylor will not come to the SEC. The SEC is not going to allow 3 teams in one state.
Well, I'm saying if they got the invite,
right?
If they would go, but you're right. The SEC, that's a good point. Actually, they might want the ACC to have a footprint in the state of Texas, so that they might encourage the ACC to go after Baylor. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I think what you're going to look at is the SEC goes to 20, then that'll take the 4 teams out of the ACC, North Carolina, Virginia, Florida State, and Clemson. Right. And then I think ESPN tells ACC, you got to get Notre Dame. That's number one. It has to happen.
Number one. Yep.
And then you're going to want to get a combination of West Virginia, Oklahoma, Baylor. You're going to try to go after Oregon, Washington, and Stanford.
Gotcha.
I think those would make the most sense. And I know
you think they let some
Stanford
of the bottom
gets a
fields?
bad name, but Stanford has power.
Hey, Joey, who do you think gets
Yes.
I'm going to shift this just a minute. Who do you think is at the bottom of, like, who has no chance of getting the attention of the SEC or the ACC, basically ESPN, out of the Big 12 and the Pac-12? Who's totally screwed, bottom of the barrel?
I think Pac-12, Oregon State, and Washington State don't have a chance of
Cal.
anything in the SEC. Yeah, possibly Cal.
Yep.
I think out of the Big 12, I don't think they would take an Iowa State. I don't think they would take a Kansas State. I believe Kansas State, they'd have a better shot with them. I think Kansas State might have a better shot than Iowa State, but I still don't think they would take it.
And see, I'm glad you said that, Joey, because a lot of people would say, oh, okay, so you're saying that West Virginia is better than Iowa State, Kansas State, brand-wise, whatever. That's not the argument.
No.
What we're saying is Iowa State and Kansas State are farther out west. They don't have a big enough brand for the SEC or the ACC to go that far out. For West Virginia, they don't have to stretch. They're right there. So we're not saying, oh, we're better than you and you have no chance and we're first here, you're last here. That's not what we're saying. The combination of West Virginia being close, that's what helps them the most with the SEC. Well, I'm going to say the ACC first and then the SEC. And Oklahoma State's brand is stronger than Kansas State or Iowa State. That's why Oklahoma State has a better shot than your Iowa State and your Kansas State. Now, Baylor is kind of in the middle because Baylor's brand right now, all-time high. All-time high. They just won the Big 12. They just won a national championship in basketball a couple of years ago, or a year before last, excuse me. And so it's at an all-time high, right? So, hold on, who is that? Somebody's phone was ringing. I think that was Joey. So
GBD,
I think they would have to sustain a couple more years, and then the SEC would be like, all right, we'll take you, Baylor. Now that you've proven that you can stay at that level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for me, this is the first and second round for the ACC in terms of adding teams. My first round is Notre Dame, West Virginia, Stanford, Oregon, and Washington. Those are my four. Those are my 5 teams that I add if we lose Virginia, North Carolina, Florida State, and Florida, and Clemson. And then my next round is Baylor, Cincinnati, UCF, and TCU.
I can believe that. I can buy that. I do think there's more value in Texas Tech than people realize too. I think they're a little bit underrated. I think people look at Texas and look at their location in Lubbock. They're in West Texas, and they don't realize how big of an alumni they have. They have a decent sized stadium. They pack it out.
They just dropped $200 million.
Yeah, and they have great boosters over there. So I would put Texas Tech having a better chance than Baylor right now. Now, in a couple years, if Baylor, has sustained success and they're bringing in a bunch of money for the Big 12, then they've proven that they can stay at the level. Because if you're new to college football and you just see Baylor as they are right now, Baylor has not been like this for very long at all. Maybe the past decade or dozen years, something like that. Art Rouse, I know he's a scumbag, but they were great under Art Rouse and RG3. But before that, Baylor was like Kansas. Think about that. Baylor was like Kansas, and Kansas was like Baylor.
Yeah.
Remember back in 2007, early 2000s, under Greg Mangino, Kansas was crazy good in the Big 12.
Yep.
And now they suck. And Baylor sucked, and now Baylor's crazy good. So the SEC could be looking at, if we would have gotten Kansas back in the early 2000s when they were hot, that would be kicking us in the rear end right now. So we need to see that Baylor can sustain. Number one, losing coaches, which they have. Matt Rule moved on. Dave Aranda back in, great hire, but I don't see Dave Aranda staying at Baylor his entire career, so he'll move on soon. They'll replace him, and if they can sustain success with another new head coach, then the SEC's like, all right, they got something cooking in Waco.
And I think
So,
for me, Texas and Texas.
I want to tell you real quick, GBD. I did a quick poll and asked the chat what they preferred. As far as conferences and teams, they chose 4 16-team conferences at 50%, 3 20-team conferences 32%, something else 11%, or 2 30-team conferences was at 5%. So the 50% won at least 4 conferences with 16 teams in each conference.
So it wasn't about the numbers because you kept the number the same, 60, 60, 60, and 60. It's just they want it divided into more conferences, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, I got you. I mean, that does make sense. People tend to, stick to what they know, and what we know right now is all the conferences that exist, and the thought of some of these conferences that have existed for a very long time going away, it's like, oh, man. Like, okay,
well,
so even when the Big East, whenever the Big East went away, the Big East wasn't that old of a conference. So it wasn't, it was a good conference in its heyday, yes, but it wasn't a traditional conference.
But see, the problem I have with the 4 conference right now is, let's be honest, even if the Big 12 right now would merge with the Pac-12, and you take the 16 best teams from those 2 conferences right now, where's their power? You got Oregon. Washington is down. Where's their power? Baylor? Yeah, like you said, though, they've only had recent success. The Big Ten has what you would consider Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, possibly Nebraska, obviously. So you got 4 really good blue bloods. And then you got Michigan State, Iowa, who's had, some good success. You look at the ACC, you got Florida State, you've got Miami, and you've got Clemson, real good blue bloods. And everybody knows the SEC blue bloods. Well, where is the 4th conference blue bloods? What makes them...
Well, I think. Close. Well, don't forget, we're not talking about 5. We're talking about 4. So what they could do is split the remaining Pac-12 and put 4. Try to do it as even as possible, brand-wise, all that stuff. Half in the Big 12 and half in the ACC, and now you're down to 4. You're down to the Big 12, the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 10. Of course, we all know Big 10, SEC, fine, blue bloods, powerhouses. So if you split the Pac-12 and go down to 4 conferences, and let's say you put Oregon and Washington in the Big 12, strong brands, right?
Right.
Close to blue bloods, if not. And then for the ACC, if they pull in Notre Dame, they could pull in a Stanford. I know Stanford's not a blue blood, but I still think that keeps it even. All right, so we move on from there. Let's say we put Utah in the Big 12 because of the BYU rivalry. That's a decent brand. Then you could slide, I would say, to make up for Utah, you could slide Arizona and Arizona State into the ACC, and then Colorado could go into the Big 12. That way it's even. I don't know what you would do with Cal, Oregon State, or Washington State. They would be, that's the one thing that that would have to get figured out. Maybe you just let them go to the Mountain West. But if you divide the Pac-12 like that to the ACC and the Big 12, no, they're still not quite to the level of the SEC and the Big 10, but they look better. You'll have Oregon, Washington, Oklahoma State, Baylor. I know Cincinnati is a group of 5 up and coming, but that's a decent brand. They're coming up. But still, compared to like Alabama, Georgia, LSU, it's not the same, but it's better. Does that make sense?
Right, but I'm just kind of worried about. I know the Big Ten and the SEC is way above, but does that make the Big 12 even close enough to the ACC? Just adding those schools? Is my question.
I
It's
think if
really
you
hard to
add
get
Washington
four.
and Oregon to the Big 12 along with Utah, I think it would. As far as ACC, not talking about the SEC, not talking about the Big 10, talking about Big 12 compared to the ACC. If you throw Oregon and Washington and Utah in the Big 12, I think it really does come close to evening out with the ACC. Even if the ACC is still a little bit better, I think it brings it up close.
But then
And
what
Notre
kills
Dame,
you
don't
is-
forget about Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
But
to
if
the
Notre
ACC,
Dame
yeah.
goes to
Give
the
it
ACC, it kills it, because with Notre Dame going to the ACC, then the Big 12 is going to lose West Virginia or Oklahoma State or both.
Yeah, I would
I
agree.
agree.
I
I
just
agree.
think that bringing in
Also-
Washington, Oregon, and Utah would help. That was my
I'll
point.
let
I also
someone else
think
come
that
in.
if
TBD.
Okay,
I'll
Tony.
drop the. Bye.
Thanks for stopping by, buddy.
take care, Tony. I also think that as I look at things, so like the only ones that could really meet the ACC right now, as far as like money, the only teams they could bring in that would raise their money a little bit would be Oregon, possibly Washington, but I'm not even sure they could. I know Oregon could raise their money, and Notre Dame. West
Washington's
Virginia
a better brand than
probably
people realize.
keep it about the same, right? But I don't know if they would raise the money that much. I mean, they might. I think West Virginia maybe could, but probably not. I don't see a Kansas or even Oklahoma State raising their money. But I think that if you was to be able to bring in Oregon and Washington into the Big 12, I think the Big 12 is just as strong as the ACC.
Yeah,
Now, I will tell you,
that was my
though,
point. Yes.
I do think
Even if they
West
get Notre Dame.
Virginia going to the ACC would bring more money than West Virginia coming to the SEC.
Oh,
Just
yeah, they
because
would-
of the rivalries you have with the ACC teams.
Yeah.
You know, that'll help you a little bit more because you guys have more games against, you know,
Yeah.
the Pitts, the Virginia Techs than you do the Auburns and Tennessee. But I think if you did come to the SEC, we'd make a big rival between you and Kentucky.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, we would play the
Huge.
Hatfield and McCoys and stuff like, you know, to try to build up a rivalry for you.
Yeah, I would
It's
agree with
all
that.
revolved.
So
It's
going
all
back to
revolved
what
around Notre
we
Dame.
started this with, what three teams, as far as if they were taken away, maybe we already talked about this, but I want to go through the conferences. For the ACC, what three teams, as far as them losing, not necessarily would kill the conference, but what three teams would hurt them the most if they lost? ACC first.
Miami, FSU, and Clemson.
Agreed.
Without a doubt.
Jeff?
I think they could lose North Carolina and not be a problem.
I think it would be close between North Carolina and Miami.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with Jeff. North Carolina's a pretty big brand, but you know what? I would actually go with Clemson, Miami, and North Carolina. I cannot figure why they're having Virginia in over Miami. I know that's a new state, you know, whatever, but I think Virginia Tech is a better brand than Virginia. But as far as the three brands, in my opinion, that would hurt the ACC the most, Clemson. That's no argument. All three of us
Clemson
agreed
hurts
on
them.
Clemson.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Now some of us disagreed on North Carolina. I think it's North Carolina because they have a pretty strong brand. I know football wise, it's stronger than people realize, but they haven't had the success to meet it. But I think North Carolina and then Miami. But it's close between North Carolina and Florida State with me. It's really, really close between the Seminoles and the Tar Heels. And the reason I chose North Carolina is because I picked Miami. So I already picked a team out of the state of Florida. So to go along with that, what would hurt them more would be losing the best brand out of the state of North Carolina. That was my rationale. All right, let's move on to the Big 12. Three brands that would hurt the Big 12 the most.
West
Oklahoma
Virginia,
State.
Oklahoma State, and Baylor.
Okay,
Yeah,
Joey?
Oklahoma State, West Virginia, and I'm going to go with Kansas. I think of Kansas just simply because of basketball. I just think that there's a lot of money in Kansas with basketball.
So I agree also with Oklahoma State and West Virginia, but I would say Texas Tech. Texas Tech has the number 2 fan base in the new Big 12, right behind West Virginia. They have a bigger alumni than people realize. They have a bigger TV market. They're out on the west side of Texas, so they have their own niche out there. And I do think that it would hurt the Big 12 losing Texas Tech and losing all that. Texas Tech brings in some money, and their basketball has been doing much, much better recently. Now, football, not so good, but they still pack out the Jones. No matter if Texas Tech is good or bad, I dread that road game this year. I do not like going to Texas Tech at all. So I got to give Texas Tech some credit. So I would say West Virginia, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma State. All right. Now, even though the Pac-12's already lost two big brands that hurt them, let's say I'm going to say Pac-10. 3 remaining brands that would hurt them the most possibly could put them out of their misery.
That's easy. That's Oregon, Washington, and the third one might be a little bit hard, but I'd say Utah.
Okay.
And I agree that it's got to be Oregon number 1. That really kills them. Washington would be number 2, and then I would have a toss-up between Stanford and Utah.
Nice. So Joey went with Washington, Oregon, and Utah. Jeff went with Washington, Oregon, and then a toss-up between Utah and Stanford. So I'm actually on the other side of the coin. I'm going Washington, Oregon, and Stanford. And the reason I don't think it's Utah is because, number one, Utah hasn't been in the Pac-12 all that much. They have a good brand. Don't get me wrong. I am not trash-talking Utah. They would be – it's close between them and Stanford. But that's the biggest brand that the Pac-12 has remaining in the state of California is Stanford. So I do think that would be the biggest blow would be Stanford. And then, of course, Oregon, that might be it right there, just Oregon in and of itself. That's a massive blow. Washington, a solid number 2. That would also hurt. And then, of course, I'm going to say Stanford because they're the biggest California brand they have remaining. J-Dub in the house. What's going on, buddy?
I don't think the Pac-12 could afford to lose anybody else right now. I agree with that. They couldn't lose anybody.
What's on your mind,
except for California.
I think we're all being set up to look like fools, all of us together. Because I think there's a great big whoa Nelly coming right now. And I think Sankey tipped his hands. I think everybody's going to pull up the horses. We don't know what the playoff situation is going to look like for the next 3 years. Right. 3 more years of the 4 team. Notre Dame has got the power and the stamina and the willpower to take these next 3 years and say, until we know what our playoff situation might look like when they redo the playoff setup in 2020 for the 2020-26 season, we're not going anywhere. Now the other conferences could get together and tell Notre Dame, you know what, you think you're such a hot shot, we're just going to freeze you out. We're going to put this new playoff thing together, and we're going to make a rule saying unless you're in a conference, you don't get to come in. They could do that just to freeze Notre Dame out if Notre Dame refuses to join somebody. But I think
agree with you in a sense, but I think they know more than what they're giving out as far as the playoffs go, and that's why I think this Notre Dame thing seems like it's being sped up, even though it's not. They've all been talking. They're just releasing information when they want to. They know what's going to happen. Yeah. We don't. I think they know more about what playoff scenario is going to happen, and that's why this Notre Dame talk really, really bubbled up, and the Big Ten really wants Notre Dame. Notre Dame's like, nah, not right now. And we're hearing all over the place, even Notre Dame boards, that, after the 2025 contract with NBC is up, they want to join the ACC full-time, which would be a win-win for Notre Dame because we found out the other day that ESPN and the ACC want to renegotiate. That doesn't happen without Notre Dame. So they can renegotiate their TV deal with NBC, keep their home games, get that money, and get a slice of the pie of the renegotiated TV deal with ESPN and the ACC. And by them joining the ACC, even if they slide Clemson, Virginia, North Carolina, and Florida State to the SEC, they're going to bring some teams with Notre Dame. So the ACC will still be a power conference, and it'll be Notre Dame's easiest path to get to the playoffs.
I don't think the SEC moves unless Notre Dame goes to the Big Ten. I think Notre Dame to the ACC does not move the SEC.
Well,
Notre Dame to the Big Ten with one other team coming in might convince, and thus they go to 18. Might convince the SEC to look at Clemson and Florida State and say, "Come and join us." I don't think the SEC wants to go much past 18. Think about this now. I don't care how much money the contract's worth. I don't care how fat your pie is. You start slicing every time you start cutting into it. Your own slice gets smaller.
Yep, that's true.
And Vanderbilt's sitting there going, "Well, we're not adding much to the pie, but why should we vote to go from 16 to 20 or 24? We like the slice of our pie at 16."
Well, here's the reason why.
When is the new TV deal supposed to happen for the SEC? Is my question.
I think Notre Dame is the cog in the whole thing.
It is. Does anybody have the year on that? When is the new TV deal supposed to start for the SEC? When is it supposed to be implemented?
2024.
2024. Okay, so they still have 2 years. It's not like it's a done deal. They could swap 4 big brands from the ACC to the SEC, and then that actually raises the value so people don't get a smaller slice. The contract actually goes up because they're still in negotiations. And the biggest thing for the ACC and the SEC is they're under ESPN, and they want to hurt Fox. Fox is their main competitor in college football, and they're going to go after the Big 12 and hurt Fox.
Can I tell you, though, how a 20-team SEC and a 20-team Big Ten makes more money than a 16-team? Even if the teams we bring in don't bring in the money? It's called the playoff. If you have a Big Ten and SEC only playoff, then you're not sharing that playoff money with the ACC, with the Big 12, with the PAC, and with the Group of 5.
They're not going to do that.
A lot more money through the playoffs.
They're not going to do that.
Well, even if they don't go just Big Ten and SEC, the fact if they go to 20, they could still flood the playoffs. So, they're getting all the revenue from most of the playoff games and the semifinals and the national championship. So, maybe the ACC sends one team and the Big 12 sends one team. In the meantime, the Big 10 sending like 4 or 5 teams and the SEC sending 4 or 5. Well, I'll go. The SEC sending 4 or 5 teams and the Big 10 sending 3 or 4 teams, something like that. So, even if they didn't do a Big 10/SEC only playoffs, if they flood the playoffs, then that creates more revenue for more teams. And the bigger your conference, the better chances you are of flooding it.
The Big Ten and the SEC love being on top, and they love being talked about, and they love being in a position of power. But this idea that they want to hurt Fox or kill the Big 12 or drive the ACC out of business or make the Pac-12 disappear is nonsense. Listen,
well, I didn't say the ACC.
If you're the most impressive animal in the zoo, okay, the dumbest thing you can do is close all the other exhibits, because then people won't come. Because then you're no longer the biggest. You're no longer the biggest, most impressive animal in the zoo. You're the only animal in the zoo. Your value.
They still have each other.
Your value goes down.
As long as they don't shrink the number of FBS teams, Power 5 teams, whatever you want to call it, significantly, I don't think that's the case, because you'd still have a powerful Big Ten, a powerful SEC, and then the next layer would be the ACC. And the teams from the Big 12, it's not like they go away; they're just getting picked off from the Big 12. And you're stomping out your competitor in Fox. So
I think what we may end up with is we may end up with what we now know, as of sitting here today, is the Pac-12, the Big 12, and the ACC. That those 3 get thrown into the blender, and what comes out is 2.
Yep,
the 3 become 2, and like Joey had the poll question up, you may end up with a when it gets all spit back out again, 4 at 16. And then what you got to think about is, okay, who's the poor unfortunate souls that didn't get in that remix? Who's left out? You know, who's the gooky eighth grade boy at the dance sitting over on the edge of and he's too scared to go ask any of the other girls to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who's going to be that
musical chairs, and there's only
Yeah.
2 chairs with
Who's
3
gonna be-
conferences.
And
Let me,
if
let
that
me-
happens, does the Big Four now? Does the Big Four say we still got to throw a bone to these other guys? We've still got to leave them 2 or 3 playoff spots. We can't just let them disappear. We've
let me
got to
say something
give
real
them.
quick. Hey, Kenny Hill in the chat. I just tossed you a wrench if you don't care. I noticed that we didn't have but one moderator in the room. So, Kenny, I tossed you a wrench.
Very good. All right, so
Sorry,
I want to
John.
talk about something else. No, you're good. You're good. I wanted to segue into something else. I saw, I believe it was CBS. Don't quote me on that. Off the top of my head, I just wrote it down. But they ranked who they thought were the starting quarterbacks of each Big 12 team, and then ranked them. So I wanted to go through that list. Number 1, to see if y'all agreed with it. Number 2, see if you don't, where would you put these quarterbacks? Okay. So here's how they had, number 1, some of these quarterback battles are still being battled, but this is who they think will start as of right now and how they rank them. So dead last, they have Tyler Show out of Texas Tech. Number 9, Hunter Deckers for Iowa State. Number 8, Jalen Daniels for Kansas. Number 7, Blake Shapen out of Baylor. That one surprised me because he beat out a pretty good quarterback, but we'll get back to him. Number 6, Adrian Martinez for Kansas State. Number 5, Max Duggan for TCU. Number 4, Quinn. Am I saying this right? Is it Ewers or Ewers?
Ewers, yeah.
Ewers. Okay, out of Texas. Number 4. Number 3, JT Daniels out of West Virginia. And number 2, Dylan Gabriel out of Oklahoma. And finally, number 1, Spencer. I put Rattler, but it's not Rattler.
No.
Spencer Sanders out of Oklahoma State. Why did I write Rattler? I think that's out of habit. Spencer Sanders out of Oklahoma State. Does that list surprise anybody?
I think Texas's quarterback's a little high. He hasn't proven himself. He couldn't even make it at Ohio State. I don't think he's going to be the savior. I would have him a little lower.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Especially the thing that I think the thing that everybody's going on was, he was a 5-star recruit out of high school, and he had a perfect rating. I believe only him and Arch Manning have ever had a perfect rating as far as from 247 recruiting. So he has that 5-star rating and a perfect, whatever you want to call it, 1,000%, 100%. I don't know how you read that, but a perfect rating. So people are going by that. I thought it was interesting that even though he was rated that high out of high school, they still bumped him down to number 4. A lot of people actually have him higher than that. I agree with you. I would actually have him lower than that because he hasn't proven anything. That doesn't mean that we think he's going to be bad or anything. It just means we haven't seen anything.
Right.
So,
no, I think he'll be a good quarterback, but he's going to need a couple years. And the
Right,
problem I have
exactly.
with Arch Manning is they gave him a perfect rating, but in his last playoff game he played in high school, he was 6 out of 17.
how
How
that's not
can
good
you
at
be
all.
the best quarterback in the land and only complete 6 passes?
Right. I got you.
I think the list that got read off there has one name that just vibrates and just flashes in neon lights, and that's Adrian Martinez, whose college eligibility began in the 2nd of the 8 years of the Bill Clinton presidency,
What?
and apparently still exists today. This guy sailed with Columbus.
Yeah.
When
How
the
old is
hell
this
is
guy?
Adrian Martinez
old
going to
is he?
go away?
How old is this guy?
his
He's like
7th
35 or something? Jeez, I
And
did
he's going to
not know
be
that.
he's going to get his graduate degree, and then right after that, he's going to get something in the mail from the AARP.
So
Yeah,
after I
he'll
looked at the
graduate
list,
with his
and after I
grandkids
looked
there.
at the stats, I wrote them down and I compared them. So I actually came up with my list. So I'll run through their list real quick, and then I'll give you my list, and y'all can tell me. And no rear end kissing. This is not what this is about, but just figure out which one you would lean more towards. By no means is my list perfect either, but it'll give you a comparison. So I'll go through their list one more time. Number 1, Spencer Sanders out of Oklahoma State. Number 2, Dylan Gabriel out of Oklahoma. Number 3, JT Daniels out of West Virginia. Number 4, Quinn Ewers out of Texas. Number 5, Max Duggan out of TCU. Number 6, Adrian Martinez for Kansas State. Number 7, Blake Shapen out of Baylor. Number 8, Jalen Daniels for Kansas. Number 9, Hunter Deckers, Iowa State. And number 10, Tyler Show out of Texas Tech. Now, I've already read that, soaked it in. My list. All right, the top 3 actually stayed the same. All right, guys. I went number 1, Spencer Sanders for Oklahoma State. I was a little iffy. Then I remembered how great of a season he had last year, and I looked at his stats. I mean, 553 for 886, 62.4%, 6,911 yards, 5th all-time for Oklahoma State, 50 touchdowns, 31 interceptions. So he's got to work on his interceptions. But dual threat quarterback, 386 carries for 1,565 yards and 4.1 yards a carry, 10 touchdowns. Dude is a game changer. So I have him at number 1. I do have Dylan Gabriel at number 2 for Oklahoma, and I do have JT Daniels number 3 for West Virginia. This is where the list changes. At number 4, I actually have Blake Shapen out of Baylor. I've seen his practice footage. I've seen I've heard what his coach has said about him, and he beat a really good quarterback in Bohannon. I think Blake Shapen, and he's got a lot of good targets over there at Baylor. So I like Blake Shapen at number 4. Number 5, Adrian Martinez. To your point, J-Dub, I got Adrian Martinez at number 5. Transfer from Nebraska to Kansas State. I just think Scott Frost couldn't figure out how to use this guy. Yes, he does have great legs, averaging 4.5 yards a carry and 35 touchdowns. But how many games has this guy played? 670 for 1,055 yards. My gosh, he's thrown the football over 1,000 times in college football. So he has experience. He knows the game, and I think Kansas State is primed to be a Big 12 sleeper in 2022. So he's at number 5. Number 6, this is where I dropped Quinn Ewers from 4 to 6. I do think he's a great talent, but he's still got a lot to prove. But I didn't put him at the bottom of the barrel. So 6, I think that's still respectable. 7, Max Duggan. He's had some injury issues, but his biggest problem is his accuracy. 58.6%. Not very good. That's why I dropped him a little lower. Number 8, Tyler Show. His accuracy is decent, 66.4%, but his touchdown to interception ratio, not very good. 22 touchdowns to 19 interceptions. He does okay with his legs, but he makes too many mistakes. Number 9, I have Jalen Daniels out of Kansas. Up and coming, not bad, but his accuracy, 58.4%. And the only reason I have Hunter Deckers out of Iowa State at the bottom is I see that he doesn't have a lot of experience, and his completion is only 58.1%. However, I do think the dude is a pretty good dual threat quarterback. He's only ran the ball 7 times, but out of those 7 times, 73 carries for 2 touchdowns. So you got to watch out for Hunter Deckers whenever he pulls the ball down. So if teams can learn how to defend against him with his legs, keep him from doing that, then they might be able to contain him. What did y'all think about my list?
Now, see, I would have put Hunter Deckers. I would have put him about 7th or 8th personally.
Okay.
And I would have had JT Daniels probably 2nd. I mean, I'm not a Georgia fan, but he would have made Georgia better. I don't agree with Kirby Smart playing Stetson Bennett over JT Daniels.
Oh,
Daniels is a
Georgia
hell of a
fans
quarterback.
forget that, dude. Georgia fans last year, whenever JT Daniels got healthy and Kirby's like, nope, we're running with Stetson. Georgia fans was like, what are you thinking? Stetson Bennett's a bum. Put in JT Daniels. He gives us the best chance. Well, little did they know that they just needed a quarterback that wasn't totally stupid, that knew how to throw a forward pass, didn't have to be elite. JT Daniels was elite, and yes, he gave them a better shot, but they didn't need a better shot, obviously. The defense kept other teams out of the game, and Stetson Bennett had no pressure. The game didn't fall on him. He didn't have to be good enough to win a game, just good enough to not lose, because the defense just did not – I mean, before the Alabama game, they allowed like 7 points per game. Then after that, it shot up to around 10 points per game. But that's still incredible. So, yeah, Georgia fans forget, well, we won a national championship, so we had the best quarterback in the nation. No, you didn't. Rewind to whenever JT got healthy, you were mad. Now you're turning around and talking out of both sides of your mouth because you went and won a national championship. It was because of your defense. And that's
Believe it or not,
why I think Georgia will take a slight step back this year.
If you put that defense to Wake Forest might have won the national championship last year with that offense Wake Forest had.
How many teams could you have put Georgia's defense on last year and they're basically guaranteed a national championship? Alabama, done.
Yeah.
Done. You think Georgia was blowing people out? You put Georgia's defense on Alabama last year, and you could be looking at an average of like 56-3, 56-7 type of blowouts.
Yeah. Cincinnati would have been another one. I mean, there's a lot of teams. That defense, like you said,
historic.
That's what won it. And Georgia's going to find out this year. Maybe we shouldn't have got rid of Daniels. Stetson isn't as great as we thought.
Yep. Exactly.
I think, in my opinion, and just simply because of the Graham Harrell effect, and JT Daniels and Graham Harrell knowing each other from USC, JT Daniels already knows the offense that Graham Harrell's going to bring into West Virginia. I think JT will be more like a coach on the field, showing receivers where to be than having to learn things. So I think JT Daniels will possibly be. I think JT Daniels will probably be the best quarterback in the Big 12 this year, just simply because he already knows the offense.
Right.
And a lot of new quarterbacks in the Big 12 this year. So I think JT could be the best one. I'm not saying he's going to be. I'm saying it could be.
Right. I had to factor in the injury.
Well, I'll be taking pictures of JT Daniels this year when West Virginia comes to Ames. And all the pictures I'm going to have of him is him standing on the sidelines because he's going to be hurt by then and he won't be playing because that's what this guy does. Now, as far as Hunter Decker goes, I ran into him in early June. He was taking a summer interim class. And I don't know what happened to him, except somebody slipped him a bunch of steroids. Because the guy put on about 25 pounds of muscle, and he doesn't even look like a quarterback. It looks like a linebacker. Deckers has pretty good mobility, and he has a cannon, but he's got a big problem because that cannon fires, and I have no idea where the ball's going. It could go anywhere. So he deserves to be at the bottom. The sad thing for me is Max Duggan at TCU. He's had some injuries.
Yep.
If that guy had stayed healthy and he'd been surrounded by Spencer Sanders' talent, he'd be Spencer Sanders. He's got the tools. It's just they've been damaged by injury and he doesn't have the weapons around him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the biggest thing about JT Daniels that a lot of people are forgetting is, I can't stay healthy and he gets injured. And that's all true. But he did recover from his injuries last year and he just wasn't played. Had he been put back out there, he would have put up a trend, historic numbers, in my opinion, because he was already having a really good season. And when I say historic, I mean for Georgia, undefeated at Georgia, 7-0. So I have no doubt that we would not be having the same conversation about JT Daniels as far as his injuries go. Now, is he injury prone? Yes, he is. He's got injured a couple of times, and it hurt his career. But he's also proven that when he's healthy and out there, that he's absolutely a game general and he's absolutely a weapon out there. That's one thing that Joey touched on that a lot of people don't even think about. Yes, JT Daniels is an elite quarterback when it comes to, his accuracy and just his overall athleticism as a quarterback. But they forget about how good mentally he is on the field, how good he is at having people in the right place, making sure they know the right route, commanding the offense out there. And that's what West Virginia's been missing over the past few years. We've had some pretty good defenses, elite defense in 2020, but our quarterbacks were just out. They didn't command the field at all. I'm not going to say they didn't have the respect of the other players. That would be assuming. But as far as directing traffic, telling people where they need to be, making sure everybody's on the same page, we did not have an on-field general the past 3 years at West Virginia. And if he stays healthy at West Virginia and we continue to put out an above-average defense out there, we're looking at at minimum 8-4, possibly up to 10-2 if things go really well. But I'm more settled on 9-3. I think 9-3 is more in line as far as what we have, who we got to play, who we have coming back, and all that stuff. And that's a big uptick. And that's
what's in that pipe you're smoking on? West Virginia was lucky not to be a 3 or 4 win team last year, and now suddenly with 1 year rent-a-cop, JT Daniels, they're going to come in and he's going to soar them to 9 or 10 wins.
Man, see,
okay. Come on now. You're saying that West Virginia.
Sorry, guys, for the ones that have been talking crap, but I'm muting you all because I got to say this. Yeah, you're running your mouth and you're saying left Virginia and yellow and navy, dude. I get that. That's cool. But we didn't get lucky. Like I said before, West Virginia 2020 elite defense last year, even though we lost the best player in Tyke Smith to Georgia, who got injured at Georgia because for whatever reason, a lot of injuries happened over there at Georgia, we still had a pretty good defense. And yes, we were lucky to get to 6-6. But my point was we consistently, as in West Virginia, consistently put out a really good defense under Neil Brown. What we've been missing is an average offense. When did I say that our offense is going to be, this amazing juggernaut? I've never said that. I said we're going to have a competent offense this year. All 5 of our offensive linemen are coming back. JT Daniels is here. Even if he gets injured, we have Will the Goose Crowder that was not getting used enough, and he just exploded on the scene in spring practice. And Graham Harrell's like, man, why have we not been talking about this guy? He was amazing out there. And Graham Harrell, the next name I'm going to talk about, we have not had an offensive coordinator the past 3 years. How many?
Well, that's where I think your secret weapon is.
How many teams can you say can go out there without having really any sort of type of offensive coordinator and still get to bowls back-to-back years?
Well, see,
I agree with you when you said that we were lucky to get the bowls. I agree with you there. But where I disagree with you is acting like that we didn't have anything. We had great defenses, and we will have a great defense this year. We're going to take a massive step forward in 2022 when it comes to offense. And it's not just JT Daniels. I'm talking about how Graham Harrell is going to call an offense that is catered to scoring points. We could not score points. We have an offensive coordinator. We have a general for our quarterback, and we got 2 great weapons for wide receivers in Prather and Bryce Ford Wheaton. We're going to average, and here's the thing, whenever Graham Harrell goes to a new team, their average points per game jumps between 8 to 10 points. Every stinking stop that he goes, that first year, they jump up 8 to 10 points. Last year, West Virginia averaged 25 points per game. So that means if history keeps repeating itself, we'll average between 30 and 35 points. If you applied that to last year, West Virginia would have went 11-1 in the regular season. 11-1. I'm not saying we're going 11-1. I'm not even saying we're going to go 10-2. But I think 9-3 is doable if we're averaging between 30 and 35, and our defense is still allowing just between 24 to 26 points per game. Yes, that does equal more wins. That does equal 9-3.
Well, I think Harrell is the best, is more important than Daniels.
Yes.
And Harrell, and if Harrell can attract 3- and 4-star receivers, because 5-star receivers and 5-star quarterbacks are not coming to Morgantown. Forget it. You're not attracting that level. But if you can get some good 3s and good 4s there, then who you're playing in the Big 12, good 3s and good 4s can make a lot of noise for you. A lot of noise.
And we just got a top 100.
And so I think I'd be more excited, not for this year with what JT Daniels can do, but can we keep Graham Harrell here on campus for 3 or 4 years and let him cook up a couple of dishes. Let's see what he can do if we turn him loose. And whatever we get with JT this year, okay, great. But I'm looking forward to what could be coming down the pipe if we just let them, because Harrell's one of those, like, he's kind of like Mike Leach is a little bit on offense, kind of a mad scientist. And you just, everything he does is kind of like, what? It's just a little bit off kilter. So it's unpredictable. So with one of those guys, you just turn him in the laboratory and close the door and let him go crazy. Just
and
see whatever comes out of it.
The cool thing about what you said is we actually have 3 types of quarterbacks. Okay, we have JT Daniels, the seasoned veteran. Yes, he does have injury issues. We all know that. He actually has 2 years of eligibility. A lot of people don't know that. And then we also have incoming 4-star phenom freshman Nico Markle, who could be the future of West Virginia, who's looking like he will be the future. And then there's Will Goose Crowder. So the reason I mentioned his name, number one, Graham Harrell really likes Will. Really, really likes this dude. And if JT does get injured and Nico's not ready, we have Will the Goose Crowder. So that's why I think our offensive situation is actually in a really good place, especially compared to the last 3 years. I mean, really, really good spot. Really good spot. Graham Harrell is the key, and that's why this offense is going to be much better than what it was last year. And we don't necessarily have to throw all of our chips into the basket of JT Daniels. We do have high expectations for him. I mean, everybody grades him as the 3rd best quarterback in the Big 12, possibly even higher if he stays healthy. But we don't have to throw all of our chips into that because of the play calling of Graham Harrell. And we have a competent quarterback that can bridge the gap between JT and Nico Markle. And JT has 2 years left. So, even he's like, you know what? I had a decent year this year, but I think I can do better. I think I can go up on the board for the NFL. So I'm going to say an extra year for West Virginia. That's something that, not a lot of people talk about or think about. Assuming that he stays healthy, he's just going to have this, phenomenal year and he's off to the NFL. That might not necessarily be the case either.
Well, and then you also have Nico. Maybe you could use a little bit this year as like triple option or, just the Wildcat, because he's a hell of a runner. And I truly believe he is your future.
I got you. All right, guys, I'm about to wrap this up, but I'm going to go around and let everybody get their last word in. J-Dub, you're first.
All right. Hey, thanks for letting me in. I apologize for going out of control yesterday.
It happened. It happens. No problem.
But thanks for letting me in. It's Thursday, which means we're 2 days from Saturday, which means we're just ticking down sooner. It's much sooner than later. We're going to finally kick off the season, and then once the season starts, we can forget all this wasting our time talking about who's going where. Let's just play some football.
You're exactly
right.
right.
Hey, thanks, guys. Everybody have a great one.
I believe in redemption, man. So I always give everybody a second chance. Joey, what's up, buddy?
All right. So listen, guys, if you head over to substack.com, and search for Golden Blue Dude. We started putting our writers over on Substack, and also we're going to create a podcast on Substack. So that's new on Golden Blue Dude. And as far as me, what's going on with me right now, I'm going to head over to Millis Vanillis channel here in a little bit because I'm going to be a guest on his show tonight. And so invite everybody over there. And then tomorrow night and Saturday night, I'm always on Traveling Fools website playing trivia with
that's an
Jeff
underrated
Webster
channel. Underrated
yeah,
channel.
we have a
I'm
good
glad
time.
you
We have a
mentioned-
great
yeah.
time. We start playing trivia games 10:30, 11 o'clock on Friday and Saturday night, and we get offline sometimes. But we got off like 7 o'clock in the morning the next morning. We play
Wow.
trivia all night long, so we have a good time.
Nice.
Anyway, so if you would support us over on support Golden Blue Dude over on Substack, it's something new for us. So don't know how it's going to work out. We're just trying it out, see how it goes. But we appreciate everybody's support. And with
Absolutely.
that, I
And-
will get off here.
Yeah, and make sure to put that in the chat, Joe, if you can still hear me. All right, Jeff.
All right. The thing I wanted to bring up today, real quick, is I found the numbers, or I found what seems to be the numbers, but the grant of rights in the ACC costs about $108 million to get out of. Notre Dame, if they do go to the ACC and keep NBC, it would give each team $6 million more.
Nice.
That
So
would
the
be the
math is
number.
actually in the favor of that.
Yep. So that's why, Notre Dame
What?
is the key.
Is it just me, or did it seem like the grant of rights was written in some type of code?
It was. I mean, I sent you a copy of it, and I bet I've read it 10 times.
Yeah.
And I think I know less now reading it 10 times than when I didn't know what it was.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time and deciphering that, buddy. I appreciate you.
But you have a great day and a great show.
I appreciate it. You as well, buddy. You as
All right.
well. For whatever reason, I was thinking today was Friday. I don't know why. When he said Thursday, I was like, what? Yep, it's Thursday. I got my days mixed up. Classic Golden Blue Dude, right? So happy Thursday to everybody. If things keep going the way they're going, I'll probably have a live show tomorrow. The problem is I don't have a specific time. So if you're a subscriber of Golden Blue Dude, make sure to hit the bell. That way you know when I go live. I don't have set times. Schedules don't work for me. They just don't. I got to fit them in wherever I can. And if you're a college football fan and you came across this screen and you're like, what is this? Just hit the subscribe button. We do videos every single day, and we're starting to crank out a lot more live shows. It's getting a lot of support, so I try to do more live shows. Over the weekend, I'm going to have a Patreon live show. I haven't done that in a while. Feel bad about it. I think it's been like 10 days, something like that. So I'm going to do a Patreon live show for all you Patrons out there. And the regular season is whenever the benefits for Patreon really go up, because Patrons get to decide what games we're going to live stream, and Patrons get to watch it live with Golden Blue Dude. And the score prediction contest. Every single week, I pick a game, and then I let you guys guess the score. Whoever comes closest to the actual score wins $20 every single week. And you can win as many times as you want. And like I say in the video, the higher the Patreon, the more guesses you get per week. So if you're a $5 Patreon, you get 5 guesses every single week. If you're a $20 Patreon, you get 20 guesses every single week. So keep your eyes out for that. Regular season, right around the corner, guys. Right around the corner. I can't wait. And I will be in the city of Pittsburgh for the backyard brawl at Heinz Field. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I'm probably going to do a live show tomorrow. So I will see y'all tomorrow. But until then, y'all have a good rest of your Thursday.